And we're live. Hi, everyone. I am back with Jackson. Hi, Jackson. So, Operation Cricket is coming up, and we have seen quite a lot of the lists now. How many lists have you gotten in so far, Jackson?
So we got 24 players, which is pretty incredible. That's already beat the largest tournament that I've ever held. So this is already a record-breaking tournament for me. I'm really happy.
And I have started crunching through the lists a little bit. Jackson has also. So today we're going to talk through the missions and give you Jackson's predictions. My predictions I'll hold back because I haven't really crunched all the numbers yet. But I'll give you like a few of my takeaways for what is happening. If you don't know what Operation Cricket is, go and watch our first video with me and Jackson. Um, and the pack sort of I think has a huge influence in what is happening with the lists. So we're seeing a lot of special things going on. Let's say that.
Oh yeah.
So, but today we'll start off with talking about the missions, and I will just share my screen, Jackson, in just a few seconds, and we can talk about what it is that the thought process is from you, and what we expect to happen in these missions.
Yes.
So, here we go. So, the first mission that we need to talk about is called Air Raid. So, we have the table, and in the middle of the table, you set up what these three points here, 18 inches apart, uh, split forces in half, allowed, blah, blah, blah. So, you agree on the terrain, as always, right? And these three, they are objectives.
Yes.
So you have three objectives, and you have half your army in reserve, and the other half forms the first wave. Can outflank. Hmm, that is going to be a struggle for the center, isn't it?
That was the intent. Yeah, everyone's got to fight in the middle,
Yeah,
and you'll see a theme as we go through the rest of the missions that I
yeah,
always like getting stuck in the center of the table. So
yeah. Which means that certain armies that maybe want to do a little bit of standoff, they're going to have to push, even though they don't want to, which is
mhm.
kind of interesting. And what I'm seeing with the lists here, I'm seeing a lot of standoff units with uh, LMGs and lots of like backline holders, I would call them normally. But I'm also seeing
Mhm.
quite a lot of units that have push capabilities, like tough fighter and assault rifles or SMGs. So it's going to be quite an interesting struggle that's forming there. What would you do? Let's say you're playing because you send in the TO list as well, right? If you end up with a one guy calling in sick, you're going to play. How would you play
Yes.
this?
Let's see. So I guess going over the uh, mission itself, it's end of game objectives
Mm,
with a bonus point towards killing the enemy lieutenant.
yeah.
And if you have two platoons, you can
Mm,
have the potential to lose 2 points if both
yeah.
your lieutenants die. So I guess
So
let's say you took two platoons. There's a maximum of 5 points that you can score,
keep your
and you got
lieutenants safe.
it's entirely possible, but you can also see that if you scroll up to the next page in the packet, you'll see the mission rule is air raid.
Mm,
So starting turn two, before you pull any order dice, you roll a dice, and
mm.
on a that should be on a 3+ because I did a test game and it really sucked having to everybody takes a pin every turn. So that's going to be on a 3+, nothing happens. But on a 1 or a 2, every
Mm.
single unit that's on the board takes 1 pin marker.
Oh,
So the
so
whole
that's yeah. So even pushing up is going to be a difficult proposition, isn't it? And you're
that
going to
mhm.
maybe get pinned and stuck in the center. Ooh.
Well, not only stuck in the center, but because it's end of game objectives, if you hold back too much or too
Yeah,
early, and you let's say you get maybe 1, 2, or 2 pins, even 1 pin, you fail a lucky order check, and
you're
you're
not going
out
to push
on
up.
an
Yeah,
objective.
yeah.
So that was kind of my intent. Was I wanted to encourage players because it's very easy in end of game objective missions to um, sort of sit in the back until turn 5, turn 6, and then rush up with everything at the end to go tag stuff. But
Especially
I
if
think
you
with
have cavalry or motorbikes or anything that can move really quickly, right? Then you can really easily do that. But you can't really do that if you're risking getting pinned, and you might not make that test. So you're going to have see armies move up. For me, I think you're going to see armies move up fairly early, actually, like turn 2, 3. I think they're going to be on the objectives and try to sit on them and just push off the enemy.
And I think leveraging reserves is probably going to be a very big deal, because I do allow outflank in this mission. I did get one Hungarian list submission, and so I thought they may have been sewer movement, but luckily I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But I think players are going to try and make a lot of use of outflank towards the late game to try and maybe if they pass that order check to come in, they can jump right in on an objective with a flamer team in a jeep or something, or maybe delay getting pinned from the potential air raids. So that's probably how I would play it. I would say I think the American lists are going to have a better time than most because they have the reserves mechanics. But still, I think there are a lot of inexperienced majority armies, but there are also a lot of veteran majority armies. So I think the veteran majority armies might have a win out here because they'll get stuck on the objective, but trying to root out down veterans, tough fighters,
that's going
you're
to
not
be
going to want
really
to get anywhere
difficult.
near that.
Yeah, that's going to be really difficult. And I also see maybe a slight. I mean, I'm not a fan of Death Stars. Everyone should know that by now. I'm not a fan of the large tanks, but I see a slight advantage in this scenario. If you can drive up your heavy tank on the center objective, yeah, you might get pinned, but you're going to be really difficult to push off that objective, and that might secure you at least one objective. Then you just need to secure one more, then you have a guaranteed draw. So I would play it like that. If I had one of those with a heavy tank, I would push the heavy tank into the center and just sit there, and then try to grab one of the other objectives, guaranteeing myself a draw.
And as we see, a lot of the not a lot, but enough of the German players have taken King Tigers or Tigers or Panzer IVs that Tiger Fear, especially with these air raids and the pins, is going to be a massive deal. Especially if you kamikaze your Tiger up, you say, okay, I'm going to hold the center point, even though tanks can only contest in my missions. They're still blocking. They're still blocking.
Yeah.
And
making sure that the enemy can't move on to their objective and take it. So yeah, that could be a thing, and that would really extend the range of your Tiger Fear, where you have a huge effect on the table, especially if those pins come down. Right. Yeah, that's how I would play it anyway. Right.
But
then,
let's say you get killed off the objective. You can still try and snipe out the enemy lieutenant, and you get a point for that. And so you can try and claw back a draw like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to encourage. Is there are multiple ways to win, and every list has some way to play it.
Yeah, I think I would actually dedicate like one unit to hunting the enemy lieutenant, and depending on where he was like hiding, I might outflank and just jump in and sacrifice 10 regular guys shooting that lieutenant.
Right. Hey, anything you can do to get the point, right? So
exactly. So, and then we have. Well, this is still that mission. So the next one we have is here, which, let me go to the start, is called Clever Maneuvers. So you place 5 objectives in the table according to the diagram, which is this one. So they're like very equally based in that star formation, basically. And then let's see, roll the 6, get a table quarter. So you play quarters. Interesting. So you have 2 objectives to start with, and then you can have half your force running down, deployed, and the other half in reserve. Okay, so pretty much like you would see in sectors, except with mission objective missions as well. Both players. Yeah. Forward deployment is allowed up to the center line of the table, but must be 12 inches away from enemy units. Ooh, that means that your forward deployers get really important because that can push the enemy back from the center line.
Yes. Yeah, so if you take a sniper or even a spotter
Yeah.
can be all the more important because I've been seeing a lot of inexperienced mortars for the people who are trying to go a bit more competitive. So
Mm,
the regular mortars with the spotter, which is my kind of play,
yeah.
that might be an interesting sleeper.
Yeah. Yeah, it might. And then you actually score victory points from turn 2 for capturing the objectives, holding the objectives. So kind of like what we're seeing with timely objectives in that mission as well, which is going to be uh, people are going to be counting up every single turn, but that really means that again you have to push up. Like you said before, Jackson, you have it's going to be a slog in the middle. Um, and it really is. People are going to be boxing in that middle, especially for the middle point, I think, because you sort of have secured your own objective most of the time, unless the enemy makes a really clever move. And the one in your neutral sector, you can pretty much move your reserves onto that. But going to that center, that is going to be key. That's going to be where you win, and it's going to be a slog.
Hmm.
So how would you
And
play it?
well, so also going with the bonus point, I think I might have adjusted the bonus point from the pack that you have, but I
Mm,
have starting turn 2, players can earn a bonus victory point at the end of each turn for having at least one unit, including a
mm,
vehicle, within the enemy deployment quarter. So
yeah.
instead of having the lieutenant in the center, since mission 1 was already killing the lieutenant, I wanted to try and uh, have players try and make that dash for the opponent deployment zone.
Mm,
And so I think again, it's going to come down to, because starting turn 3, you can outflank from up to the center line. If you
yeah.
get a good run, you just need, and the whole deployment quarter is their
Mm,
deployment zone.
yeah.
So any unit who outflanks, if you pick that side, but your opponent might predict that because you don't reveal the side that you come on until
Mm.
later, um, you can try and make a dash to try and get that third victory point. So it's not just gonna be a bum rush to the middle, but you have to also split your forces and defend the back. Uh,
Yeah. Otherwise, they are going to outflank into your sector. Yes, definitely.
so yeah, I guess how would I play this? I played this mission with my friend David
Mm,
um, last week, and it came down. I thought I was on the money by advancing all my guys onto the objectives, trying to get in the center, using my forward deployers to box everything out. But my dice just totally screwed me that game. And so I
oh,
was on.
Jackson,
Oh
that's the
man.
worst excuse ever. It's never just
Hey,
the dice.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I will be the one to wear it.
Yeah.
I did make some tactical errors as well, but I got
Okay.
on all 3 center objectives by
Yeah.
turn 2. I was really coming on, but
Mm.
then David has the last pull. He brings on his T-34 with tank riders, gets out and just blasts me with SMGs off of
Ah.
everything. And it
Yeah.
was just like that was a really fun thing because I wasn't expecting it at all.
Mm.
And he's like, "Oh, I still got one thing in the bag," and I'm like, "Oh shit." Oh
No.
no, I didn't have anything in ambush at that point because he killed my bazooka, and I'm just like, "Oh boy."
Oh, this is gonna hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but
Right.
yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's
For
a little bit
me,
about
I
that.
think having like dedicated units dedicated to doing separate things here might really be key. And then having your lieutenant uh, be where he needs to be at the right moment is also going to be key. So a lot of tactical decisions, a lot of interesting planning out. I think will
Mhm.
win this mission.
Yeah, one list that I want to have of note, especially for this mission that I was reviewing,
Mm,
is Spencer's Arditi Commandos, because
yeah.
all of the commandos ignore the -1 from coming in via outflank.
Mm,
So I think he's going to have a lot of late game pressure
mm,
um, in the third, fourth, and fifth turn to really
yeah.
maybe get the opponent off of their home objective and secure those 3 points or possibly 4 points if they can't root them out of the objective.
Yeah. And but then again, he is bringing Italians, so we'll see if that works out. Um, then we have the third mission, which is Get 'em, which here is you place a token or marker at the center of the table. Both players roll, pick sides, divide their forces, first wave and reserve. So you can actually choose how much you want in first wave and how much you want in reserve, not like half of it. Is
Mhm.
that right? Mhm.
Half they're forced rounding down to be in first wave, and the other half is in
Okay,
reserve.
so it's yeah, right, because that's the normal thing, right?
Yeah.
Kill points is a thing, so you earn 1 kill point for each enemy unit slain, and King of the Hill, so you earn 1 victory points for each turn you have a unit within 6 of the center. Both players can score at the same. Oh, you really like that slog in the center, don't you, Jackson?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is going to be another one of those. Everyone's going to rush for that because that's a lot of points. If you sit with a unit within 6 of that center for 6 turns, that's 6 points. I I do see some games being decided by more than 6 points difference in kill points, but not a lot. So they are going to that is going to be key. Sitting on
Mhm.
that center objective, right?
And I know a
Um,
little bit about how you were talking about how we saw 9 order dice lists, and you were like, I
yeah,
think you were saying that he may really struggle from
yeah.
that order dice advantage.
Mm,
This is, I think, where the sleeper is going to be because his opponent, the order dice average for the whole tournament is 14,
yeah.
so he already has a 5 dice advantage, quote unquote.
Mm.
And especially with his big easy 8 tank, you pull that up right in the center,
If he can
contest it,
sit
you're
on that
farming that
center
points.
objective and just stay alive, which is the key here, stay alive. So I can't remember who it was. It was Greg, right?
Greg.
Yeah, Greg. Great. I know you're a newer player. You are going to struggle with just having not enough order dice for the other missions. But in this one, if you can get your stuff onto that center objective and just stay there, go down, be on ambush, you might win this one just on having fewer order dice, which is kind of weird for me to say because that is not normally what I'm saying. But in this one, you're actually right, Jackson. Fewer order dice might win you the game if you can stay on the objective here.
Hmm.
Um, what are the lieutenant doing in this one? He have a function here as well?
He does not, no. So
Okay.
the King of the Hill is any unit
Mm,
has to be partially within 6. That includes vehicles.
mm.
Um, and so it's not like you're fighting over a center objective with just your lieutenant. Your whole army is going after it. So your lieutenant maybe goes back to the support function that you probably intended for it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So those were the missions. I really like these missions. I think they're well thought out. I know they're very alternative and not in either of the big packs, but I mean, we're all just waiting for version 3 to come out with some new missions and some new rules and stuff. So I really like this, and I think they're well thought out for the thing that you wanted. You wanted that slog in the middle. You wanted people to push up. All of them demand that you do that. All of them are really tactical in my mind, and uh, they're going for the center always going for the center. Um, so that's really cool to see actually that you can design missions that do exactly what it is that you wanted them to do. How long have you been working on these missions?
Yeah, so I first started working on Cricket since about April
Mm,
of this year. So I think I designed the missions over the course of maybe a week or two, and I've
yep.
just kind of been sitting on them. Um, so I'd say like a spring week in April was whenever I was thinking all of these up. But yeah, I was looking through all my campaign books, looking through Chicago Dice's page. I know they post all of their Adepticon missions from prior years, so I was farming the community to see what I can pull from.
Mm,
And I was, like you said, that prioritizing that slog in the middle, that's just something that I personally love to see as a
yeah.
player. And so I wanted to encourage that.
Mm, right. Now, Jackson, you made a small PowerPoint in the style of what I usually do with our predictions and stuff and what we're seeing. So I just wanted to present that to everyone here as well. So Operation Cricket, this is Jackson's predictions for what's going to happen. Da 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 da. And if we can make it move, I can't make it move. Just a second. There we go. So the pre-tournament predictions. You think the best allies are going to be Ben Allen and Henry Sater. Could you just talk us through why you picked out those two lists?
Sure. Yeah. So this is going to be a combination for all of these picks. It's going to be a combination of the list and the player. Um, so Ben's list is extremely um, he makes a lot of competitive choices. He really maximized the packet to be like, okay, I'm going to take 2 flamers. I'm going to double up on my tanks. He takes 2 chaffies, takes 2 light howitzers, and he takes the full 16 dice cap. I think only 2 or 3 players took the max of 16 dice, with the average being 14. So while they're all going to be regulars, he may struggle if he comes across a lot of HE or something like that. I think the Americans with their reserve tactics and the fact that both of his flamers are in engineer units, they're mounted in trucks, he can really come up the board and make the most of the reserves mechanics or outflanks and just really be a nuisance. Because everything in his army, you need to kill it. Like everything is a threat. And Ben is also a very solid player. He actually won Best Allies at my most recent tournament in August. So I'm really excited to see how he plays. And then moving on to Henry, Henry's list, I know he went for, so while Ben may be taking a slight hit on comp and theme score, like we were talking about in my previous mission, Henry's, I think, maxes it out. He's taking
he
full
really
airborne,
does.
taking a chaplain, taking a lot of veterans. He's taking a Hellcat, very quick, really leaning into that stubborn airborne mechanic, and I really like that. And I think the 13 order dice, I know you talk about the Goldilocks zone for you guys being about 16, 17. For this tournament, I think it's just under the average, which is where I want to be. 12, 13 dice.
I think you already calculated that the average was 14, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And that's sort of also what I was thinking, just looking through the lists, which means that he's not that low for this tournament. So and if you go a little low, I don't think that's a problem, because that typically means that you have stronger units. Like your units are more survivable, and maybe they're larger, or you have more armor or whatever, and that can be a benefit, especially if you have like struggles in the center of the board. So I think Henry is actually leaning into that with his veteran airborne here.
And going a little bit more into his list, while he doesn't have artillery or a multiple launcher or things like that, he does have a sniper, which actually a majority of the armies that I saw had a sniper, but there are a lot of things that hinge on your lieutenant. So I think having the ability to pick that out or eliminate teams very quickly is going to be a good call and really make the most of that order dice disadvantage. Because if you get 1 or 2 lucky rolls with that sniper, then you're right back on even footing, and now you can make those vet troops that much more important.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And for best axes, your predictions is Chris and Sean, and talk us through those two here.
Yes. So as you can see, both of the best axis picks ended up taking Schutzen. Both of them are double tanks, but they did slight difference. Whereas Chris's he has a Tiger and a Panzer IV. So like we talked about in the missions, making the most of that Tiger fear, rush up in the center, really uses tanks to make a bubble of area denial. And I think his Schutzen can make the most of the double LMGs that he was taking. And the list is just extremely powerful, even at 14 dice. And he's also just a top-notch player. He performs really well at Adepticon every year. And I'm excited to see what happens. And then Sean, he went full into the DAC theme, which I really enjoy. He was taking Schutzen, taking early Panzer IIIs, taking half tracks, so extremely mobile. But he maxes out the order dice cap again. And I think just like those two, like the German Dacus Stewart is going to be really tough to deal with. He has so many LMGs in this list. But he does have a lot of regulars, not a lot of veterans, and so I'm curious to see that push to the center. I'm interested to see if he can hold on. With regulars rather than veterans.
Because his Schutzen units are very good backline holders, but they're not that great at pushing into the center and staying on objectives, because they're regulars, and typically they're not that many guys in the unit anyway. So I actually have both Ben and Sean on my list of lists that competitively would be my top choices as well. Both of them are really good, both because they are slightly higher than average on order dice, and I don't think that anything in their list is soft and easily killed anyway. I think, as we just talked about, Sean's Schützen might struggle in some of the missions, um, and Ben's Chaffee might not be enough to counter all the heavy tanks that we're seeing in this pack. But I think that they have the tools in their lists normally to do really well. Then we have some minors as well, and you had this in a separate category for best minor powers that you think could do well here. We have Alex and Matthew. Talk us through them. Both of them French.
Yes, so both of them French and both prioritizing French Foreign Legion and Senegalese. So a lot of veterans, a lot of tough fighters.
Mm.
But they both take it slightly different. So I'll start with Alex. I played against him at Jason Sater's tournament. I think early this past year. I think it might have been March. Whenever I came down and he was hosting a convention in Ohio. And Alex is just an absolute top-notch player. I was playing against him with my Italians. He had his French, and it was just an absolute slog. Came down to the final dice, and I think he has that tactical mind to be able to make the most of a potentially minor nation. He's still, and both of these lists doubling up on medium howitzers. The Char B1. I mean, Alex's list has a Char B1 and a Char 2C. With the howitzers, that's four sources.
That's 4
of
HE
big
shots.
HE.
So there's a lot of HE coming out of these lists. Yeah.
Yeah. So these lists have a lot of teeth to go against enemy infantry. And while I think they may lack against targeting a heavy tank, it's infantry that can capture objectives. It's infantry that is going to be winning. So I think they have the answers to fight against some of the more some of the tougher major powers.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how Alex takes it. And then Matthew, his list as well. Foreign Legion, lots of veterans. He takes 2 units of cavalry, veteran cavalry.
Yeah.
So highly mobile. But he also, what I really like from the theme aspect, he took a captain, which is something I rarely see on the table ever.
No, I don't think I've ever seen one, actually. I've seen one in a very, very specific non-competitive game. I've never seen one at a tournament, not once.
Yeah, so I think Matthew is he's gonna get points for that theme for taking something that's a bit more fluffy. But he still has a lot of teeth with a lot of veteran infantry and still the Char B1. Especially coming from whenever I play my Italians, that thing is damn near impossible to kill with the light AT guns, or if people are taking the Stuarts, taking the Chaffies, even a medium tank can be tough to deal with sometimes. So I think that ability to really, while he has 3 sources of HE because his double howitzers and the Char B1, I think the cavalry are going to be really coming in clutch with being extremely mobile. And he has the captain to be able to get that reserves bonus or to ignore a lot of those pins that you might see in round 1.
My one caveat is that the cavalry is not going to be massively influential in the objective missions because of the way you set them up. So, I mean, as we talked about earlier, with one mission, you're getting pins out of sequence. So the cavalry might not be able to jump onto the objectives, and a lot of the objectives are also those where in the other missions where you count them every single turn. And cavalry, it really wants to jump onto objectives late game or to charge through enemy lines most of the time, but it doesn't really want to stay and go down on an objective, right? It's not really good at that. So so in some games, I think it's going to be key, and it's going to definitely be good at rooting out enemy infantry. But I think he might struggle with objectives. Right. So those are your picks. I actually, while we've been sitting here talking, I feel comfortable now of giving my predictions as well, which I promised I wouldn't do, but I think I am going to. I think Ben, he has a list that is skirmish heavy, which is what I like to see in Americans. So for me, he's also in the top 3. Just going by list and not knowing the players too well. I have seen 1 or 2 names before, but I don't know many of these players, right? So just going by the list, and I think he could actually pull it out because he's leaning into what Americans is really good at. And he has a good order dice count, and everything is dangerous. I'll also say the same for David K, who's bringing Soviet tough fighter veterans. So he has a lot of veterans in his list.
David Siberian list, Kosman.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was. Oh my god, I'm really scared of that one.
yeah. That
But
is
like
really a
50 tough
scary
fighter
list.
veterans.
Yeah,
Ooh, like
yeah. There's so many veterans in that list. And they're just going to be really difficult to kill. And I think in these missions, being difficult to kill is a great thing. So for me, I think David might actually have the best list. I don't know about the player, but I think he might have the most competitive list. And then Sean, of course, with his Schutzen, that's just always one thing is he will definitely score high on theme, right? But I think Schutzen is just also just a very, very good unit. Um, so all the Darker that's coming out of his list it's going to be really dangerous for most people. He might struggle a little bit against the heavier tanks, I think. So those three would be my predictions for the top 5, I guess. Right.
And I did have one more slide here for the honorable mentions. Here we go. Yeah, we just went
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And these are some of the lists that I wanted to call attention to that really went into either theme or
Mm.
absolutely crushed painting from what I know. I know players have been sending me pictures and sending, hey, here's my update on my display board,
Ah,
stuff like that.
nice. Nice.
So because I published in the pack that I'm very much prioritizing theme, prioritizing all sorts of
Mm.
different ways to make points.
Yeah.
And so, in addition to the best battlefield, people have been sending me their display boards while they're working on.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so, I wanted to talk about some of these lists as well, letting
Mm.
the big cats roll. So, Joe, Cole, and Greg taking the big heavy tanks
Yeah.
for the
With the
day.
big tigers and all the different like weird and wonderful German units, the field police and Strafbats and the Charlemagnes, all of that, which have very, very like fun thematic rules as well. I really love that. Um,
Yeah, and at least talking about both of these, the King Tiger lists, I
mm,
was really surprised to see that they both nearly maxed out the order count.
they really
Um,
did, yeah.
Yeah, Joe put 13 dice in,
Mm,
and Cole has 12 dice in. And while they're each only taking one vehicle, they're still taking a mortar. Cole's taking a multiple launcher. Like
mm.
they still have lots of
They have
surprising
teeth,
teeth.
yeah. They really do, yeah. And then, of course, the painting. We can't see that right now, but I promise me that the best painters, the best like the top 3 or whatever, that we'll get when we review the event afterwards, that we'll get to see the best minis, right? Because
Hmm.
that's always popular. Um, and you have Mark and David for that. The Croatian Germans. I'm really looking forward to that. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
sorry, you go.
oh yeah. So David's a longtime friend of mine. He and I have been playing together since high school. We did Warhammer growing up, and
Mm,
moved on to Bullet Action as we grew up. But yeah, David really leaned into the Croatian Legion Germans, taking I think 3 or 4 squads of Croatian Pride, so regular Germans, but they can shed 2 pins on Snap
mm.
2. Um, so I think that's actually going to be a bit of a sleeper pick. But he's been sending me pictures like crazy. He has custom decals for all of his models.
Oh wow.
Does a really beautiful snow effect for like
Mm.
winter here, and I think I can't wait to see it on the table.
And then Mark's Stalingrad Soviets with an IS-2 and tank riders and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that always and especially if you have the models with the tank riders actually sitting on the tank. Some people I know have them magnetized so you can take off the. Oh, it's just a wonderful modeling opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, and plugging in for Mark, I know he really leans into the fluff. Actually, just this past weekend, he had a
Mm.
big like Stalingrad Games Day
Yeah.
down in Ohio, and his models they always just blow me away. Like he's a ex Golden Demon finalist from 40K days. Like he's just a top notch painter, and
Yeah.
actually motivated me to start trying winning my own best painted awards. And same thing with David. Mark has been a massive inspiration to both of us in terms of painting. And so I
Yeah.
just wanted to give him a major shout out. I'm so glad that he's coming to the event.
Mm.
And his list is still extremely nasty. Like that IS2 can take out anything with the big HE. and all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. So
And it can be actually quite surprising how much punch such an IS2 has. I mean, I usually play very like top meta competitive lists, and I have had my Gurkha Stewart spam lists handed back to me on a plate by IS2s, just needing a 5 to hit. Okay, I'll do that. Punk 5. That's a unit. Punk. Next unit. Punk. Dead.
Yep.
So yeah, so that can happen. So it's actually quite a good tank, and has a lot of punch and a lot of again painting opportunity. And then
Mhm.
you have a sleeper pick, Joseph. Tell me about him.
Yes, yeah. So Joseph Ferraro, another one of my good friends. He plays with me up here in Michigan. He's been scrambling to get everything painted. I know, so it's been he's trying to hit that 3-color minimum.
Mm,
But it's been a good. He's been doing a lot of good conversion work. But what I want to call out is he actually had the vehicle count high for this event. He has 6 vehicles in his list.
yeah.
Between a combination of field cars, half tracks, and tanks. Um, and he has a sniper, artillery, as well as a multiple launcher and 2 flamers.
Mm,
So like still a ton of teeth, and he actually won best axis at the first tournament that we ever went to together, using his Panzer IV in a
mm,
Nebelwerfer. So he has a lot of very good experience wielding Germans, and I'm really excited to see how it goes, because he's been sending me pics on the Panzer Grenadiers all the time. Been trying to convert, do that like the leveraging the motorized artillery or the motorized infantry mechanic,
yeah.
to shed those pins, or re-roll the order check while in the transport, which I think is really good. So really leaning into the Panzer Grenadier theme,
Mm,
as well as having a pretty nuts list. So I'm really excited to see how he turns out. And so while he didn't make my original ranking, I'm really excited. He's a player to watch for sure.
yeah. He didn't make my ranking as well, but he does have a 15 order dice list, so it is pretty high on order dice. And he has a lot of gear in his unit, so they can actually punch well above their weight in many respects, I think. Even though I wouldn't normally recommend doing that, but since he's also leaning into theme here, I think it's a very clever idea because he has punch and he has theme as well. Um, really nice.
Yeah.
Um, then of course we need to shout out to all the sponsors for the event again. Like you guys have loads of interesting sponsors here, but Rubicon and War, of course, being 2 of the big ones. Anything you want to especially point out?
Yeah, so I really want to call out a few things. So just this weekend, I've been scrambling to paint all the terrain that I was sent, from Tabletop Terrain. They sent me a lovely set of Normandy bunkers and a trench work network. So you're
Mm.
going to see that as one of the tables that I provide, as well as a chance to win that terrain from the Best Battlefield Award.
Woo!
And then another one, while he doesn't have a name in his logo, second on the left, that's Jarl's Workshop. My
Mm?
friend Rusty Parker, he's actually hosting he's one of the co-chairs of the convention. He has a 3D printing side, but 3D printing business on the side.
Mm.
And he sent me an awesome like set of village terrain which I want to highlight, like a big ruined church. And so I'm going to
Mm.
make that like a Dutch resistance, like so. Have all the orange flags hanging out the windows and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. I'm going to try and make a lot of conversion opportunities with billboards and stuff like that. So I just wanted to give him a major shout out. And of course, all the sponsors here, major props to them. I know Father and Son Gaming, Jason and his son Henry,
Mm.
have been massive supporters of it. They've been to every single event that I've hosted, and they make stellar MDF terrain. And so I just want to
Mm.
make sure that they get a solid shout out. And I just want to say I want to thank them a ton for supporting my events, as well as all my sponsors. This has been an absolute record send. I kept sending email after email after email to these companies,
Mm.
and it's amazing to see the support that they sent, even for a fairly small convention. All these companies want to see the hobby grow,
Yeah.
and ultimately, all of what they sent is going to be going to the players, and that's what it's all about. Come in,
Yeah.
win a box, and have a great
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah. Exactly. Right. The rest was just these pictures. So we are actually done, Jackson. We will do at least one more video with me and Jackson. I want to go through what I'm seeing meta-wise here, and then we'll also do one where we talk about the results, I guess.
sounds good. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Bo.
Right. Good luck, and I will see everyone in the next video. Cheers.